been 6 months and 27 days since we last watched Eagles football, but who's counting? The New York Jets are in town for the 2022 preseason opener. 10 hot training camp practices at the NovaCare complex have led to some Friday night lights in South Philadelphia. What will we see from the Birds tonight? It's all going down real soon. Welcome to the Kickoff Show, presented by Little Caesars. I'm Ella DiGiovanni, joined by Fran Duffy. Fran, we can take that big inhale, exhale. Football is back. How are we feeling?
Feeling great, and it's finally here, right? We have all these off-season milestones. First training camp practice, first padded practice, first open practice. Well, tonight we have our first preseason game, our first look at the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles. So happy it's finally here.
Well, the Eagles had a little bit of a chance to get used to Lincoln Financial Field last Sunday night for their open practice. 30,000 fans were in attendance. A.J. Brown, new wide receiver, he got a little taste of Eagles fans on Sunday night. But of course, there was a big play that happened. Jalen Hurts connected with A.J. Brown in the end zone. Let's take a look. There he goes in the pocket. He's looking for his new wide receiver. Found him. Fran, you and I were watching this practice go down. The place erupted.
It exploded. There was 30,000 fans in the lower bowl. The place went nuts, and it was just so fun to see the players feed off that energy. We saw A.J. Brown take a big play on a screen pass just a couple of plays before that, but when the ball's up in the air, you could hear the collective and then just everyone went nuts. It was an awesome atmosphere last week at the Link.
It was the moment fans were waiting for.
Yes.
After this signing, fans were so excited about A.J. Brown. So to get their first look, they did a good job kind of playing towards the fan base that night.
No doubt.
But before we check out what's going on at Lincoln Financial Field tonight, A.J. Brown was asked about that touchdown catch. Let's see what he had to say.
I was in game mode, man. I was in game mode. I felt the fans, the energy from them. That's why they probably got the reaction. You know, I even caught myself afterwards diving, making the play for on the ball, and I don't dive in practice. You know, that's a rule. You never dive in practice, and you know, it felt so game-like with the fans in there. They were showing love, and I was feeling the energy. You know, I felt like I was in game mode. So.
And with that, the players are warming up over at Lincoln Financial Field. We're going to check out what's going on over there across the way, presented by our friends at PA Lottery. Well, wide receivers, that's where we're going with this whole conversation right here. A.J. Brown. Now, when you talk about what the Eagles did this year in the NFL draft, you have to include A.J. Brown in that conversation because they traded away that second first-round pick to go get him. Now, Fran, in the offseason, the free agency market for wide receivers was hot. But
yes.
You had Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, guys of that nature. Why was A.J. Brown such a good fit for this Eagles offense?
Well, number one, it's his youth, and it was the price tag. The Eagles did not have to give up nearly as much as those other teams did for those high-ticket wide receivers. But then also, it comes to them at a younger age, and so you have a lot more staying power with an A.J. Brown. I just love the addition, Ella, and I'll talk a little bit later about how he was used in Tennessee and how we project his usage will look here in Philadelphia. But this is a dynamite wide receiver, one of the best in the league, without question. Anybody you talk to will talk about how exactly he can impact this Eagles offense. It's going to be so fun to watch here this fall.
He was asked in his opening press conference about being a veteran in this wide receiver room, and he said, look, I'm still a student of the game regardless. And that was a humility that he brought to that opening press conference that really, I think, raised some eyebrows because you do see what he did in Tennessee and you see the numbers he can put up. You look at his stature. He's a big-bodied receiver. And as you can tell on the sidelines during some of these training camp practices,
yeah,
he is constantly communicating with Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor on these sidelines all throughout practice. So it's a great addition from the obvious standpoint, which are his numbers and his ability as a pass catcher, but also what he brings in terms of his knowledge and his professionalism.
Then that last word is so perfect because I was just going to say, he is a pro's pro. You could tell just by his approach every single day in practice, every single rep means something to him. When you watch him go up against Slay, when you watch him go up against James Bradbury on the outside, it's not just two guys coasting through the rep and saying, all right, hey, we're just trying to get through today's practice. Every single rep is life or death for this guy. It's just so much fun to watch him. He plays with so much passion, so much energy. I've had so much fun watching him every day, and I just think that he's going to be an instant fan favorite here in Philadelphia.
We're going to head over and take a look at the quarterback situation. Now, earlier in the week, Nick Sirianni didn't completely commit to who we were going to see tonight in the preseason game, but he did say he may put his starters out there for 1 or 2 series. We'll see what his final decision is in the coming hour or so. But right now we're looking at Jalen Hurts, QB1. Let's look at 2021 for Jalen Hurts first. He threw for over 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, and of course, what we know about his game where he shines is what he does with his legs. He ran for 10 touchdowns. Now, Darius Slay was asked what is the difference in Jalen Hurts last year at this time as opposed to this year, and he said his command of this team. He's a leader. And Fran, when you see him out there at practice, he is QB1 this year for sure.
You know, we talked about it on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast after Wednesday's practice, Ella, where, you know, Jalen Hurts, it wasn't like the best day. There were a couple balls that hit the ground, but you could just tell how calm and collected and poised he was every single time he dropped back to throw. There's definitely a difference in feel and vibes and mindset from Jalen Hurts this summer compared to last summer. And don't take my word for it. You've heard offensive coaches talk about it here this summer. You've heard his teammates talk about it. You talked about Darius Slay, but even some of the receivers have come out and say, yeah, like he's just got a lot more comfort in the offense. Remember, this is the first time since high school that he enters a season having the same offensive coordinator from the year before. So just some continuity in Jalen Hurts' life is going to help him here going into this football season.
And another note, when you think about the preseason, this is the time for the guys that sit behind Jalen Hurts to really fight for a job or solidify their spot on the depth chart. When we're looking at Gardner Minshew, Reed Sinnett, and Carson Strong really duke it out in training camp, it'll be interesting to see what they use of these opportunities in the coming weeks with these 3 preseason games. Who earns a spot on this roster and who is sitting behind Jalen Hurts?
And that's the thing, for all these, the receivers, for the linebackers, for the running backs, for the quarterback, you know, we've seen some live periods in Camp Ella, some tackling the ground, but most of the tackling has been done by the third team unit, and it's only been a period here and there. Well, now we get 60 minutes times 3 over the next 3 weeks of live tackling, live periods, live action for all of these players. And it might only be a series or 2 for the starters. It might only be a couple of series for the backups. But for all of these other guys that are clawing tooth and nail for a starting job or for a roster spot, these reps are going to mean the world for these players moving down the road.
We've been watching the tight ends warm up here on your screen. Let's talk about Dallas Goddard. When we have this conversation about the wide receiver room and the additions to that room, you have to think about what does this mean for Dallas Goddard. He's a big-bodied tight end, but things are going to open up for him this season when you got guys like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Zach Pascal out on that football field for Dallas Goddard to really step up.
What I love about Dallas Goddard is that he could do anything you need offensively. If you want a tight end that's going to create yards after catch, there aren't a lot of those guys in the league that are built like Dallas Goddard that can run after with the ball in their hands and be a playmaker. He's got that in his bag. If you want a guy that can separate and route a defender up and create some separation on his own, Dallas Goddard can do that. If you need a guy to get down the seam, Dallas Goddard can do that. And oh, by the way, not to be forgotten, in this offense, if you need somebody to block a defensive end on a base block, if you need a guy to come across the formation or lead up into the hole and fit up on a linebacker, Dallas Goddard can do that. And so that versatility, that's what makes him one of the best tight ends in football. Now we get to see an opportunity for him where he goes into the season as tight end 1. It's something he hasn't done since college.
And opposing defenses, the trouble that they're going to have is to decide where are we going to deploy our assets here. Do we cover our tight end? Do we cover these fast wide receivers, our physical, big-bodied wide receiver? There's so many options that defenses are going to have a hard time game planning for all the weapons on this Eagles offense. But you talk about Dallas Goddard entering his first season as tight end 1. Jack Stoll, he has really made a name for himself in camp so far. What do you think about him behind Dallas Goddard?
I think just rock solid. And we saw Jack Stoll come in last summer as an undrafted free agent, and all he did was be nice and steady every single day out in training camp, out during practice. And remember, Dallas Goddard, Zach Ertz, those guys were getting the majority of the reps. Tyree Jackson, he was one of the darlings of camp last summer. You still had Richard Rodgers on the roster. So Jack Stoll, he's in there with the third team. He's getting a majority of the reps in the preseason. You get a one-handed catch. You get a nice catch going to the ground on a diving reception. You see him fitting in the run as a blocker at the point of attack. Well, that's what Jack Stoll brings to the table. He is a very well-rounded player, and his versatility is going to really help this Eagles offense as a backup tight end, working alongside Dallas Goddard.
Sticking with the offense, we're going to talk about the running backs. Boston Scott suffered a concussion late last week. He's still working his way back through concussion protocol. Let's talk a little bit about Kenny Gainwell to start. He's had an excellent camp. Lane Johnson said that he is making a name for himself during this training camp. What have you liked about him so far through these past few weeks, Fran?
Well, honestly, it's a lot of the same things I just said about Jack Stoll, where he could chip in a lot of different ways. Kenny Gainwell has that ability to chip in a number of different ways. We know that he's got that receiving chops, right? He's got that ability to line up across the formation. He can run routes like a slot receiver. He's worked down the field vertically. We've seen a little bit of that. We've also seen him be a really proficient back inside the 5-yard line, inside the 10-yard line. He scored a bunch of touchdowns last year, was one of the leading touchdown scorers from the running back position in that rookie class a year ago. I think when you look at Kenny Gainwell, just a really well-rounded runner, and that's going to serve him well in this backfield, sharing time with Miles Sanders and Boston Scott.
Boston Scott actually mentioned this week that in today's NFL, you have to be able to do it all as a running back. You have to develop as a pass catcher. And we see that a lot in practice these past few weeks, a lot of those screen plays to Miles Sanders. I don't know what we'll see just yet tonight, but defenses have to be preparing, and it's good this Eagles defense is ready to defend those types of running backs who are able to do it all.
And remember, where do Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator, where do they come from? Where have they worked in the past? Well, Nick Sirianni, when he was in Indianapolis, they did a great job of getting the ball to Nyheim Hines in space, and he was one of the most productive pass catchers at the running back position in the NFL. Then you go look at the LA Chargers previously in San Diego. Well, Shane Steichen comes from there, and Austin Eckler has been an extremely productive pass catcher. So 2 offensive coaches central to the thought process of this game plan on a weekly basis. They want to get the running back the ball in space, and it's one of the best matchups for offenses to take advantage of in this entire sport.
We can't talk about the running game without talking about this offensive line. The big boys up front, they were a huge part of what made this Eagles offense tick last season. Now, it's been interesting through camp. Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard suffering concussions. They're making their way back through concussion protocol. Jason Kelce this week, he had a routine elbow clean out, so he will not be practicing through the preseason. Cam Jurgens, the rookie, is going to be stepping into those shoes. Isaac Seumalo returns from an injury that he suffered last season. They've been putting him on the right side next to Lane Johnson. What have you seen from this offensive line through camp and how they're kind of plugging and playing these guys along the way?
Well, that's why versatility is such an important quality for linemen coming out of college for this Eagles offense, because that versatility, that ability to basically just plug it where it leaks. If you got somebody that steps down at guard, well, hey, maybe you've got the majority of your reps at left tackle, but you could step in and play right guard. Isaac Seumalo is a perfect example of exactly that. He's lined up all across the formation. Landon Dickerson, when he was in college, he played all 5 offensive line positions. Lane Johnson, when he was in college, he was a tight end and left tackle. He's been a right tackle since he's come into the league. And you go down the line, so many of these guys on this depth chart have that ability to win at a number of different spots, and that is so, so important. As far as the starters go, Ella, I've been really impressed with what we've seen so far. Obviously, it's been without that live action, right? And that's why these preseason games, they're going to carry a little bit more weight, but I'm excited to see how the bottom part of this depth chart shakes out here over the next 3 weeks.
Well, on Sunday night, Nick Sirianni was asked about his right tackle, Lane Johnson. Here's what he had to say.
Lane, to me, is he's the best, one of the best tackles in the world. He's the best right tackle in the world. I mean, to be able to say that about guys on your roster, that's a cool thing to have, right? Lane, you are the best right tackle in the world. That's how my eyes see it. That's how people in our building see it. That's how our offense, coaches see it. The defensive staff sees it the same way. You know, everyone recognizes what type of player he is. And to be able to have that with your tackle is just a huge advantage for an offense that, you know that Lane Johnson has it taken care of over on the right side. You don't have to help him out. You don't have to give him extra help. He's one of the best tackles in the NFL. He's the best right tackle in my eyes in the NFL.
I thought it was interesting to hear Lane Johnson and Isaac Seumalo talk about each other this week in press conferences. Lane Johnson said Seumalo is fast like Brandon Brooks. He said, which makes my job so much easier on the right side. You have to remember, Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson have been side by side for quite a few years. So if Isaac Seumalo and Lane Johnson can really get on the same page, that right side isn't going to skip a beat.
Well, they've played as teammates since 2016 when Isaac was drafted, right? And Lane was only in his 3rd year at that point. they've only played one snap next to each other along the offensive line up to this year, right? So now coming into the season, they're going to be relied on to kind of anchor down that right side. So communication and reps, they're going to be very important. So that's why these are quality reps that Lane and Ives are going to get together here tonight and over the next couple of weeks. But there's not much that needs to be said about Lane Johnson. And I can tell you this. I know that Nick Sirianni said that's how we view Lane Johnson in the building, the best right tackle in football. There are plenty of people around the NFL that agree with that statement. They are not alone with that thought.
It's hard to disagree on that one.
Yes.
In the trenches, it's been a battle of the rookies, Fran. Cam Jurgens and Jordan Davis have been competing through camp and earning the respect of their older teammates. Jordan Davis discussed the benefits of going against Jurgens every day.
It's good. It's good. I look forward to competition. That's why, we're in this business to compete. So to have him, he's a great caliber player. And to go against him, it makes me better and it makes him better because, I would say this is probably one of the best offensive defensive lines that we have. And to be able to go against each other every day is like an iron sharpens iron mentality. So, I always look at competition as getting me better. Every loss is a lesson, so you can always learn from it. So if you lose a rep, you can learn from it. You be like, all right, what did I do wrong? My hand placement, my technique, I wasn't driving my feet were stuck. So, just learning those little things and getting better as time goes on.
There's also a viral video from Sunday night's practice of Jordan Davis and Cam Jurgens going at it one-on-one. That was all over Twitter. Jordan Davis was asked what he thought about that video. He said, I hate it. He said because that's one rep. He beat Cam Jurgens in that specific rep, and he said, Cam beats me all the time, you just don't see it. And he just went on to talk about the relationship. Like he said, iron sharpens iron situation. How important is it as two rookies to have this kind of opportunity to go at it every day in practice and make each other better?
I will say I loved that quote from Jordan Davis so much, and it really kind of spoke to him from a personality standpoint, and really kind of opened up people's eyes on the outside to say, like, yeah, this is the kind of humble human being that Jordan Davis is. Real quick, as an aside too, Ella, those one-on-one drills, they are catered to the defensive line, just like they are catered to the wide receivers in those kinds of situations. But no, every single day, those guys have gone back and forth. And again, the Eagles, we talked about this when they drafted Jordan Davis, when they drafted Cam Jurgens back in April. They put so much value, so much stock, so many resources into the lines of scrimmage. They're going to continue to beef those two areas up, because if you go into a football season being really strong up front on offense and really strong up front on defense, that is a really, really good starting point. And usually the teams that are playing late into the playoffs, late into the postseason, you could say they win along the line of scrimmage.
Right now you're looking at linebacker Hassan Reddick, who is added also in free agency. Between Hassan Reddick, rookie Nakobe Dean, and TJ Edwards, who was signed to an extension, these three linebackers have played excellent football through camp. But I think is interesting, and Jonathan Gannon has been asked about this, why so much mix and match? He's been mixing and matching these combos of linebackers, and I think he's just trying to see what he has. How can he build this defense, play to the skill set of these guys?
We've seen a lot of rotation, not just at linebacker, but at safety along the defensive line. You go over to the offensive side, wide receiver, offensive line, straight down the list. But I think when you look at linebacker, number one, yeah, you're trying to get a sense of, guys, how do they look? Let's get reps with this guy with the ones, that guy with the ones. But also, when injuries happen, you need all of these guys to be able to step in and play. And so just like what we talked about with the offensive line, hey, one guy can play left guard, and now next snap, he needs to be able to play right guard. He can play left tackle. Well, now let's see him at center. All those different kind of combinations. Same thing at linebacker. He might play as a middle linebacker on one play, but if there's an injury, well, now you got to step in on the weak side, and those are completely different responsibilities on a snap-by-snap basis. And so you're going to see all those different combinations. I'm sure we'll see different combinations tonight as the game progresses. It's going to be fun to watch this group. It's a really interesting group and how it's constructed, Ella.
And it looks a lot different than it looked last year. Yeah. You have to consider what JG is trying to establish, because there are new faces on the defensive side of the ball. And when you insert players like Jordan Davis as well, who's capable of different things, how will all of these pieces come together? Hassan Reddick, he's listed as a linebacker, but he is a pass rusher too. And so, playing to those skill sets, I think these games are so important for figuring that out as well. We're going to move into the secondary. Darius Slay, he's having a great camp, playing at a very high level. And then James Bradbury, another addition in the offseason, who, between him and Darius Slay, they've been really challenged by A.J. Brown. Yeah. But A.J. Brown feels very challenged by that duo as well.
If you could, every single day, whether he's going up against Slay or whether he's going up against Bradbury, Bradbury, each guy is going to get their set of wins. And there was a great, the Eagles actually just posted on social media the last couple of days a clip of A.J. Brown and James Bradbury going head-to-head in one-on-ones in consecutive reps. First, A.J. Brown wins on a quick slant. Bradbury did not make that easy. He had to fight through contact at the line of scrimmage. It was a really physical jam at the line. Then he's physical through the route, and he impacts the catch point. A.J. Brown comes up with the reception. A couple plays later, the two guys go head-to-head again, and it's a fade route over the top, and A.J. Brown looks like he's going to have it, and Bradbury uses his long arms and pokes it out and forces the incomplete pass at the very end. So you get a sense of both of these guys, how well they compete, how physical they are, just really good additions on both sides of the football, and it goes back to something Jordan said in that quote from Jordan Davis, that iron sharpens iron. That has been a very popular statement here at Eagles training camp so far this summer.
Darius Slay said A.J. Brown is turning 50-50 balls to 70-30 balls, which is interesting to think about when you look at Darius Slay's career and you think he's seen a lot of players, played a lot of football in his career as a Pro Bowler. For him to come out and say, I'm challenged out here every day, that is such a good thing to think about out of the secondary moving forward. This is what they're facing every day in practice. Not every player can say that they're up against some of the best in practice every single day. So how that translates onto the football field and as we start to get into the grind of a season is going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and it sets the table for the young players too, right? Because we just saw Zach McPherson there getting ready to line up against A.J. Brown. If you're Zach McPherson, if you're these other corners, and you see, well, this is how Slay approaches every single day. This is how physical Bradbury is on every single one-on-one rep. We talk about the culture, just seeing Fletcher Cox there playing to the camera, the culture that defensive line sets in that room, and there's a play style that is demanded by the veterans in that room. You better run to the football every single day. You better be physical and competitive on every single rep. You're getting that same kind of culture at defensive back when you have a guy like Darius Slay in that room.
And then, of course, you add Brandon Graham back into the mix when you want to talk about a veteran presence on the defensive side of the ball. He was certainly missed last season, but the way his teammates have talked about him and coaches have talked about him, Brandon Graham is back. And if you watch him in practice, it looks like he hasn't skipped a beat. What Achilles injury, Fran?
Literally like the first rep, a first team period on day one of training camp. Brandon Graham's out there hooting and hollering with the starters, first team, and it's like, it's just great to see number 55 out on that field. And he's been really, really good. I think when you watch him in one-on-one reps, he's been dominant. He's lined up inside. He's lined up outside. He's defending the run. He's sniffing out the screen. He's getting sacks in team periods. Brandon Graham, we'll see what the snap share looks like, and I expect that the defensive line is going to be a heavy rotation as the season progresses. But when he's out there, I would expect Brandon Graham to be an impactful player for this front.
Anthony Harris breaking the team down before they head back into the locker room, I'm sure, following warm-ups. He's another veteran presence guy, and Jonathan Gannon spoke about him specifically, about how he can kind of be the bridge between younger player and coach. I think that's a super interesting concept. Nick Sirianni talks about communication so much. And when you really use and lock into those veteran players, use them as an asset, as a resource, that only strengthens those lines of communication and makes that defense better.
You and I are out there every single day for practice, and being out there early on before stretch and before individual periods start, you get a sense of the dynamics there. And Jonathan Gannon is always talking to Anthony Harris before practice starts. Really kind of speaks to that coach on the field mentality.
We're going to check in with somebody who's also on the field, and that's our Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro, who joins us live from Lincoln Financial Field. Dave, we're talking a little bit about the rookies. We mentioned Jason Kelce out after that routine elbow clean-out. So Cam Jurgens, it's his time to shine. How do you see him fit into the offensive line in the absence of Kelce?
Yeah, I mean, Ella, first of all, it's an absolutely beautiful night here at Lincoln Financial Field. Crowd is really electric, really great atmosphere here. People are excited. And they're excited to see Cam Jurgens. I can tell you that the Eagles, in the draft weekend, I was in the draft room when they selected Cam Jurgens, and the reaction was extreme excitement. Spent some time with offensive line coaches, Jeff Stoutland and Roy Istvin, talking about Jurgens that night, and they're really, really high on him. So his ability to recognize, his athletic ability, his ability to get out of the screen, his strength, his ability to communicate. We're going to see all of that tonight, and what's cool is that it's going to be against a new team, new looks, new personnel. He's going to have to think on the run. He's going to have to make decisions and communicate very quickly. So it's a great testing ground for Cam Jurgens. Eagles fans, don't be concerned about Jason Kelce. Everybody's very optimistic about his recovery in time for the regular season. No timetable set, but in the meantime, we're going to see a lot of Cam Jurgens in this preseason, and I think you're going to like what you see.
For rookies, this is their first game experience. It's their time to really step on the field and prove, why did this team draft me this year in the NFL draft? So how do you see the rookies really acclimate to their first NFL game day experience?
Yeah, I mean, things are going to be different. Again, new personnel, new tempo. They have not, the first and second teams have not tackled to the ground in training camp. The Eagles have had 3s-on-3s tackle. So all of that is going to be new tonight. The Jets are going to present some different looks. The Eagles have been going against the Eagles here for 3 weeks. So I know Jordan Davis yesterday in a meeting that we had for our television broadcast called it a dream come true. He's going to have his family here. He's very excited. He and Nakobe Dean have talked so much about this being the next step on their football journey. So I know it doesn't count in the standings, but for the rookies, the draft class, and a very talented group of players brought here after the draft, it's a big, big deal.
That was Eagles insider Dave Spadaro. Be sure to join him also on the broadcast on NBC 10. He'll have you covered all night. Thanks. Talking about the rookies and these new faces on this football team, when you think about this moment, like Dave said, we've been in the dog days of camp at this point. We're going into week 3. The days get long, and there's a little bit of a monotony to it at some point. They step onto this field, some fighting for a job. What do you expect to see in terms of what they want to put on the field?
I think that's where the human element kind of comes into play a little bit with these rookies making their first NFL action here this evening. Because, for the veterans, the guys that are established, they're definitely going to be on the 53-man roster. Sure, they have things they want to work on. They want to take some hits, right? They want to kind of get their bodies ready for the season. But at the end of the day, you're trying to get through healthy. For these rookies, though, this is what you've been working your entire life for. This is your first time to play under the lights, playing an NFL game, and you got to be happy. You got to be excited for all of those guys really getting that first opportunity tonight against the New York Jets.
You could kind of feel the juice on Wednesday. They knew it was coming.
Yeah.
They knew they were going to get some contact on Friday.
It's different.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, Dave Spadaro has been busy this training camp interviewing some of your favorite players like Jalen Hurts, Hassan Reddick, and Jake Elliott. Last week, he spoke with A.J. Brown and asked what makes him such a special player.
My mindset, I believe I can do anything and everything whenever I want to, and just how I approach my day-to-day efforts. I try to stick with my routine over like motivation. I'm not always motivated, but if I can stick to my routine, I'm being very disciplined. It's doing the little things over and over. Like I try to break the game down to the smallest part as I can, and that's just working on the little fundamentals over and over. Everybody want to do like the little flashy stuff, but I'm just trying to just work on the fundamentals, because when the game's on the line and you need that first down, I'm going to stick to my fundamentals.
The Kickoff Show is brought to you by Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL and proud partner of your Philadelphia Eagles. Order online today, pizza pizza. They gave the right girl that read because I love pizza.
I want to talk about AJ. Personally.
AJ, pizza. All right, well, to watch Dave's interview with A.J. Brown and all of his other interviews throughout training camp, visit PhiladelphiaEagles.com, the Eagles mobile app, and all social platforms. Well, why quit on the A.J. Brown talk, right, Fran? What do you have for us in your Rico Extra Point?
Well, obviously, all eyes on A.J. Brown. We've been talking a lot about him here tonight. And I think, really, for me, it's important to kind of reflect on what made him so great with the Tennessee Titans. So I thought, here for this first Rico Extra Point, let's look back at how he impacted that offense over the last couple of years down in Nashville. And I think when you look at A.J. Brown, all-pro quality receiver. He's been a multiple-time Pro Bowler, one of the best receivers in the league, playing in that offense. And again, in Tennessee, this was a run-first operation. Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in the league. We want to smash mouth, run between the tackles, get you downhill. Everybody's condensed inside the formation. Well, that's going to draw those linebackers up towards the line of scrimmage, and now you've got A.J. Brown working the middle of the field on those quick slants, those bang posts, trying to get him the ball on the run and get him to the second level to get that free run at safeties, and that's where he did the most of his damage. So when you look at A.J. Brown, that's what he's known for, the physicality after the catch, working the middle of the field. He did that in college at Ole Miss. Well, now you see him in the NFL, but to me, Ella, what stands out about A.J. Brown and what we've seen from him so far in camp, yeah, we've seen a lot of those slants, a lot of those those quick in-breakers, a lot of the plays in the middle of the field, but he's also catching screens and taking it down the sideline for big plays. We've seen him catch deep balls down the field. We showed that play from open practice last Sunday night, right? So just continuing to see him impact not just the intermediate area, not just the middle of the field, not just the dirty yards, but creating the big plays. That's what A.J. Brown is all about. I can't wait to see him here in Philadelphia.
Well, you just got Eagles fans so excited. We got to get to the game now.
That's it.
We're off to the races. That'll do it for us on the Kickoff Show presented by Little Caesars. Be sure to join us for the post-game show immediately following that final whistle. Ike Reese will be joining Fran and I in studio. But for now, enjoy the game. Who knows who we're going to see playing? We're going to see football. Who knows who we'll see? But enjoy the game and go Birds.